38. Thank you for coming to the community meeting. We have a fairly short agenda here. The really interesting part is at the end, the open discussion, where you get to tell us what you're thinking. After all, we work for you. We're selected to represent the community, and you are the community. So we do what you tell us we're supposed to do. So I'm going to start off with a brief report on what the steering committee and what the organization has been up to for the last few months since the last meeting. Oh, reminder, thanks, Joe. I just stole your words from last time. This is a meeting for everybody, dialogue rather than lecture. So if you have something to say, step up to a mic, please, because this is being webcast. So people out there, if there are any, will want to hear what you have to say, and we certainly want to hear what you have to say. And feel free to come up and ask questions anytime during the presentations or during the open discussion section toward the end. So here's my steering committee report. Steering committee are the people with blue badges like this. If you're on the steering committee, could you stand up and wave so everybody can see who you are? Thank you.
Hey, Joe, you can stop waving.
Yeah. Let's see. We've been up to some stuff since the last meeting. We had an election. We had some new committee members get seated. Sylvie and Dwayne and if I had a good memory, I could list the entire membership for you, but you saw the slide earlier. And it's on the web. We had the mailing list committee transition to the communications committee. This was one of the charter amendments that we voted on last time. And it's intended to reflect that it's not just about a mailing list anymore. We have this whole internet technology stuff now. So the communications committee has been looking at things like Twitter and Facebook and Morse code and other things like that, which we'll probably hear a little bit more about later. So that's been going on. The marketing working group has really taken off in the last few months. There are a whole bunch of people who are now really engaged at trying to make things happen. Some of it you'll be seeing around you during this meeting. And again, we'll be hearing more about that. But I'd especially like to give thanks to Kris and the members of the marketing working group for putting together a lot of stuff in the last 2 months, and I think it's going to work out really well for us. The Operator of Tomorrow partnership is another mechanism to funnel money towards young people who are just getting into the industry, students in particular, who might enjoy coming to one of our meetings, might learn something, but could use some funding. So that we finally finished and published some documentation for that in the last couple of months, and next we'll be focused on implementing it. Done a lot of work preparing for this meeting and future meetings. We now have stuff pretty well scheduled through 2011. Betty will be talking some more about that. And some joint meeting planning with Aaron has been going on so that we can try to make the transition on Wednesdays between the NANOG portion and the Aaron portion more relevant to both constituencies so that we can take advantage of the overlap. After this, we're not done. We still have some more work to do. We need to work on the Postel Scholarship Award for this coming year. We need to we'll continue working on communications besides the mailing list, continue the great momentum with the marketing working group, actually implement the Operator Tomorrow partnership so that we can take money from rich corporations and funnel it to the students, whatever. Finalize the 2011 meetings. Again, Betty will mention where we are on those, and then it's time to get started on 2012. Our goal is to keep about 2 years window in front of us so that we're not stuck in the situation where we used to be years ago, where it was March and we didn't know where we were going to be in June. And finally, the steering committee has been talking about setting up a finance subcommittee for a while so we can pay more attention to where the money comes from and where it goes. And we intend to get started on that in the next couple of months. Here's a list of mailing lists. Again, this is a slide I stole from Joe. You can read it, commit it to memory. This is who you mail if you need anything. These slides will be on the web, so you don't really need to memorize it. Dave Meyer will now give us a brief report on the program committee.
Did you mean me? Yeah.
Okay, so unlike the steering committee, the program committee is really fundamentally concerned with producing the agenda and the program for the current meeting. So we don't have, there's not a real administrative aspect to it. So I don't have a lot with respect to that. There's a couple of things that we did do, though, that might be of interest. One thing that we had was that people had, I don't know, complained, but had mentioned that the call for presentations was never issued early enough. And it turns out that the CFP is largely the same every time with the exception of the dates. So what we're going to try to do is publish the dates on the last day of this meeting so that, and let people know that NANOG 49 will be open for submissions. So that's one thing. The other thing that my colleagues have mentioned to me is that we'd like to get more lightning talks. Everybody know what lightning talks are? Yeah. Okay. So more lightning talks for NANOG 48 this week. So if you have some ideas of things that you might like to submit, please do. And the final thing I wanted to say is that predecessors in this role have kind of done things like put up slides with, well, we received N talks, we accepted N of them, the standard deviation is blah, blah, and all this kind of stuff. And I always found those fantastically boring, so I don't make those. But, well, come on. But if people really want to see those, let me know, and we can make them. It's just like, this is your time, and you really want to see that stuff. So I'll hand it from here to, who's next, Kris? Okay.
All right, so I am Kris Foster, and Randy Epstein, the chair, isn't here. He's discovered that running a bar is more time-consuming than running a network. So he's having fun in Florida right now. The only other communications committee member here is Michael Smith, and he's got the red target on his chest too. So we're really open to hearing what you have to say. If there's anything that you want to talk about, gripe about, whatever, we're receptive to that. I think the biggest thing that we've decided to do since the last NANOG is we're actually Twittering this one. So if you're into Twitter, you can follow us. We're at NANOG. And I know some of you are, because I have tweeted earlier today, and I did hear cell phones simultaneously beep, which if the tweets are annoying or if there's something helpful that I could tweet for you, let me know. Right now I'm just going to let you know when different sessions are starting up, and we'll see how that goes for everybody. Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, Raz's birthday. I tweet birthdays, so if you have any special events, I'll be happy to do that for you. So the only thing I want to say, and I pretty much say this every time, the mailing list is what you make it. It's really how you contribute to it. If you don't like some of the stuff on it, you know what? Everybody has email clients that can filter stuff. You can filter people. You can filter subjects. You can do the filtering yourself. So we've really toned down the moderation that we've been doing. In fact, there has been 0 thread moderations in February, and there was only 1 in January, and that was because the thread was deviating into some personal attacks, and nobody likes those. Anyways, that's it. And I think Kris with the. Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you ever considered some additions to mailing list that would support some sort of all heads up type messages that there is a major issue in the network screwing up, that we could alert the community at large to in a standard way that everyone knows that this is a NANOG heads up type message?
We've discussed in the past splitting off the mailing list into different categories of messages. The volume right now on the list, I think, is low enough that when there's something major that's happening, it really does stick out, and that you will notice it. Certainly something that we can discuss. The only ones that we've really split off are ones where we have to, nobody really wants to hear about the great places to eat in Austin if they're not actually in Austin, so we made the attendee list for them. And I think maybe that's what Patrick was going to point out. No? Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys.
So I'm Kris, the chair of the working group for the NANOG marketing. Couple things. We've been basically tasked with the promotion of sponsorship for the various events here at NANOG, including items such as the badges, the lanyards, your breaks, your breakfast, beer and gear, and the new vendor collaboration room, which definitely thanks to John Brasowski of Comcast for. The working group is basically taking particular notice of also the socials and the vendor collaboration room, promoting the sponsorship of this, and this is for maintaining the fee structure of NANOG, so it's not to go up and charge everyone additional fees. I think let's see. Yeah. Questions? Try another mic.
I just want to thank Kris, and I want everybody in the room to thank Kris for bringing some professionalism and some intelligence to the chairman role of the marketing committee. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, they're all tall. I'm not. Good afternoon, everyone. You're all quiet. Is this going to be a quick meeting tonight? I don't know. Well, I'm Betty Burke. I am the project manager for the NANOG activity at Merit. I usually start off with a number of slides about 48, but this evening I thought I would get the business of 47 behind us and start with the financial report. It's here as you see it. We had $279,347.46 in revenue. Revenue means it's both the registration fees and sponsorship fees for the meeting. That's revenue. And the expenses were $268,732.39, with the various categories following the expense. At the end of the day, when we tallied up all of the expenses against the revenue, the meeting itself, NANOG 47, netted the project account an additional balance of $10,614.97. So that is consistent with the meeting before. We haven't had a loss in the project in a while. Those are good numbers. I generally also put together a big set of marketing slides to thank everyone going forward for NANOG 48. But given we have a number of glossy boards out in front and a lot of this information is on the website, I didn't want to take a lot of time putting it in front of you this evening. But I do want to recognize our host. As all of you know, the host is an important role at NANOG, and we certainly appreciate at Merit the number of folks who come forward and call us about wanting to host a meeting. We hope that it's been a pleasant experience for those who have hosted, and going forward we hope that it's not seen as a big burden, and it certainly makes a difference when we're trying to plan meetings out into the future. at Merit to not have to worry about connectivity. And that's certainly one of the big roles, and both GigaNews and Data Foundry came forward and have done a great job in helping us for this meeting. We also see at this meeting we have a number of additional meeting sponsors. We have a lanyard sponsor, as you'll see on your lanyard. We continue to have a badge sponsor, someone who's actually willing to put forward some dollars to have their name associated on the agenda. We have a whole host of contributors. The contributors aren't always folks who have provided monetary support, but in-kind support, some activity or support that they've given to the meeting to make it possible for us to deliver all of the services that you enjoy. Of course, we always love our break sponsors, our beer and gear, and as Kris indicated, for the first time embraced in NANOG as a demonstration room sponsor. The hours yet for the demo room are going to be determined. We've had a little bit of an equipment delivery glitch, but we expect the demo room to be available and the hours posted for you all. I hope you take an opportunity to go in and see that room as well, as it is a new activity, and I think it will prove to be something that's a staple for Merit going forward. The survey giveaway, let me mention that it's not really a financial contributor to the meeting itself, but this is really something where a member of the community has stepped forward and said, what can we do to bring back the attention and motivation to complete the survey? So they have put together a prize, if you will, that will be awarded Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning. We work through a process, so all of you need to make sure that you know how to find your MAC address. The survey will be, the survey tool that I use to put together the survey actually captures IP addresses, and our authentication server catches MAC addresses. So we'll randomly pick an IP. We'll match it to the MAC address from the authentication servers, and we will award the winner for the survey on Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning. So do the survey. I also want to thank the NANOG support staff. They're unrecognized heroes for this meeting. They go meeting to meeting and often are just in the background. You don't see them as much as you see Gail, Carol, and myself, but they are extremely valuable to all of you. And if you have a moment, they also have a colored badge on. Please recognize their contribution. As always, Merit likes to take a moment and thank the members of the steering committee, the program committee, the communications committee, and the marketing committee. I get to get a colored, really multicolored badge because I serve with all of those folks to the benefit of all of you, the attendees. NANOG is one of those activities that is really a collaboration. It takes work on all of the committees, all of Merit, and all of you to make this a worthwhile event. And I personally want to acknowledge that and say thank you. And as I do that, I am saying my goodbye to the project. It's been great working with all of you. I truly have enjoyed my stay at NANOG. I've enjoyed working with all of the various hosts, not only the ones in the past, but the ones that we have lined up in the future. I have enjoyed working through the evolution process that we've all known either as the revolution or evolution, depending on your point of view. I like evolution. I've really found great reward in working through the election process. We had our doubts early on whether it would really work, and even by the last election, I can say it does work. It's very fair and engaging by all of you. I think that all of you can tell by the slides and the committee work that we're engaged in planning a new course for NANOG. I think all of you have to continue to be engaged. Merit needs to be engaged to make sure that the activity that is unique to the operator community continues in a way that works for everyone. I've had great joy in working with the Merit staff. I think as a staff, we've grown and learned much from all of you that we can take back home to Michigan, and it's been very rewarding for me to be a part of that. I also want to thank our NANOG internships. I heard from Elise Garrick a few meetings ago, actually a few years ago now, about the one missing element of NANOG. That is the fact that many of us are a little bit older. Some of us are brand new to the community. But what we're missing are those brand new interns, those folks who are coming out of our universities or startup businesses who really need some sponsorship, some help in getting to NANOG. The Operator of Tomorrow opportunity will provide that. The NANOG internship is an opportunity for Merit to look inside its governing membership of higher education and bring interns to NANOG. So it's two ways in which we're reaching out and bringing in new membership to the community, and I value all of the contributions from our Merit members that have been here. And I really encourage all of you to plan your next chapter and look forward, and I'll certainly be in touch. And as we look forward, here's the meeting schedule that Steve mentioned. I don't have a lot of dates in this slide. Some are up on the website because they're fixed. Others are just conversations that are in process. NANOG 49 is in the calendar. It's up on the web, and we'll be releasing the new CFPM website at the conclusion of this meeting. NANOG 50 is also on the website. There's links there as well, not as much detail, but we'll be going to Atlanta. NANOG 51, we have a host. That's confirmed. We're working on the hotel contract in Miami. NANOG 52 is in progress. We have a host that's identified and a host location, but that's about where we're at. We don't have enough information to be able to share much with you. I imagine probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks you'll see that information change, and you can always look at the futures meeting to see it as it evolves. NANOG 53, we have a hotel contract and dates reserved, and we have a host. We don't have all of the I's dotted, T's crossed, but in the fall of 2012, we should be going back to Philadelphia. So that's the end of my presentation. Do you have any questions for me? Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to open up the mics for open discussion. So this is where you get a chance to tell us what you think. Maybe you think we're doing a great job. You can tell us that, you know, in mind. Cash is always nice too. If you think there's something we could do better, we really want to know about that. If you have questions about the way we do things, please ask them. Now's the chance. Yes?
I remember seeing in the old version of NANOG website a very good collection of NANOG presentation. I think it was named NANOG Network Security Curriculum or a Operations Basic Curriculum. I mean, basically a good set of NANOG presentations that contained a must-read for every network engineer. And this was, I think it was lost somewhere when you laid out a new website at some point. I just went searching for that and I couldn't find. Do you know if this collection is somewhere? And maybe this is an idea for the future. I mean, you should perhaps keep an updated list of the best presentations in various meetings, categorized under various sections. I don't know if there is one, but this is something for you to develop, perhaps.
Hi. You're absolutely right. When we made the change to the NANOG website, some of the very, very old, early presentations didn't fit into the proper archive. I had really believed that we had made a link to those, but I'll take a look at them. You're absolutely right. We need to maintain that archive and its importance to the community and the history of the Internet. So I'll take a look at it. I know what problem you might be referring to. I'm just not sure of the status, so I'll check on it.
Before Patrick, in case there's anybody in the back paying attention to the audio stuff, we lost the monitor speaker up here, which means that it's kind of hard for us to hear the questions as they come in. So if you could fix that, that would be great. And Patrick. Well, we can't hear these questions. This is the perfect time for you. Yeah.
Hello. There we go. I think this microphone is made for TCAP because... So, as a member of the community, specifically just as a member of the community, not as any official role, I would just like to say that I think Betty has done a great job, and if you want some feedback, I think she should stay on.
Thanks, guys.
Does anybody else have anything for us, or is the speaker going to get fixed for nothing? He just got out during Betty's talk, so. Oh, come on. Somebody must have something. You must be angry about something. Come on. Don't you want us to moderate the mailing list more or less, or?
Steve Gibbard, speaking only for myself. So just wanted to say that having worked with Betty through the NANOG evolution stuff several years ago now at this point, that's been really great, and thank you, Betty.
Thank you, Steve.
And good luck with whatever comes next.
Thanks. Well, since you all don't have a question, and I can be the devil's advocate now, I'm going to ask you a question. As the marketing working group and the steering committee and Merit go forward, we all know that the price of staff and the price of cookies are going up. You've seen the budget report that I've provided since the evolution, and you've seen the ups and downs of the bottom line. As Merit and the steering committee struggle with the finance committee, as Steve indicated, if we're not as successful in finding new ways for bringing in larger sponsorship dollars, what do you all feel about the registration fee and your comfort level with it? Is it good? A little higher, okay? Has it got to stay where it's at? Thoughts?
It's worth remembering that the money that you spend does not go to pay for the steering committee corporate jet. I've just used this joke before, I know. It goes to build a reserve, which is used to help mitigate the risk of signing hotel contracts a year or two in the future. Every time we sign a hotel contract, there is a risk to Merit. Merit takes the liability on. If for some reason that meeting doesn't happen, they're still on the hook for the dollars. So that's what the reserve is used for. So, go ahead.
Martin Hannigan. Betty, thanks for the good work. I remember spitting Coke all over you in Vegas, and it was pretty funny. It's come a long way, so good work.
Thank you.
As far as raising fees, I don't think you give us enough information to allow us to answer that question. The numbers that Merit gives us for NANOG financials is not the T account. If you guys want to provide the T account where we can actually get into things like depreciation and talk about the balance sheet and cost of capital and all those fun and exciting things, I think we could have a more intelligent discussion. I don't think that we've done enough work on the sponsorship side, and I think we should do more work there, and we should do more work to, improve the income side of the balance sheet before we decide to raise fees for people like me and people like you. Thanks.
Thanks, Marty.
This is Patrick Delmore. I have a follow-on question to what Betty said. By raise of hands, how many people here expense the NANOG entrance fee? Let me rephrase. By raise of hands, who here does not expense the NANOG fee? Okay. Of the people who, because that was, like 6 of you, of the people who do expense it, how many of you would have trouble getting your company to expense an extra $100? I think that actually answered the question.
Hi. Again, Betty, nice job.
Thank you.
You've done wonderfully. I just want to say a couple of things. First...
Who are you, by the way?
Dan Golden. Hello, everyone. If you look at other similar conferences to NANOG, that last about the same amount of time and have similar content and similar benefits. NANOG is a bit cheaper than most. The most significant difference between NANOG and some of these other conferences is that most of these other conferences include at least lunch. So I think what you may want to do if you have an intern hanging around who's looking for something to do is actually to do a little analysis and to look at 4 or 5 or 6 other similar conferences of similar length and figure out sort of where you're at and do an apples to apples comparison of, are meals included, that sort of thing. So that's one item. The other is, I do have to agree with Marty that if you look at the revenue that comes out of NANOG, and look at the percentage that comes from sponsors and the percentage that comes from attendees, at most other similar conferences, sponsors end up paying a considerably larger piece of the pie. So while I'm not in any way opposed to raising the price of the conference, this is a good deal. I think sponsors, if marketed properly, presented properly, and if sponsors are provided a way to monetize their investment, which in the past they have not always been, I think you could really find more sponsors and charge them more. I think there's a lot of stuff like having a permanent exhibit room open for the entire event, having levels of sponsorship, putting some logos, some creative places. I think you can do that without turning this into interop.
No, and I completely agree. Let me be clear. I asked the question not to invoke a bit of tension, but to invoke dialogue. As Steve had indicated on his slide, I think it's really important for the steering committee to have that kind of budgetary exchange of information with Merit. It's pretty hard for someone like me or anyone else to kind of have a deep level financial discussion at the community meeting. It takes a long time. You don't usually do all of that here. But it's certainly something that I think is worthwhile. And the engaged discussion on the balance of the registration fee versus the sponsorship fee and a better understanding before you talk about an increase in anything.
Just a quick follow-up to that. One thing you should take away from this is in years past, when there have been discussions of raising the rates, there have been howls of protest. I don't think you're getting quite as many howls today. That being said, reasonably considering the number of attendees, you guys should probably have a margin of $80,000 or $90,000 per event. Just in terms of I've run a couple of similar events, you should be able to clear a pretty good margin on this. And I think you can do that through both enhanced sponsorships and through, if necessary, raising the rates.
It's always been an interesting trade-off between inviting sponsorships and trying to not turn this into a trade show. And we certainly, in the old days, it was very hard to one side of not making it a trade show. In recent years, we've definitely opened up sponsorship opportunities slowly. My personal opinion is that so far it's not at all intrusive. I'd like to hear if anybody feels differently and why, because that's where we need to go. Maybe we can ratchet it up a little bit more without hurting things. The trick is going to be knowing when we've reached the limit. So, next.
Hi, my name is Joel Krauska. This is a personal observation. Ever since the Dominican Republic, I did not go to that one, but that sort of had a... First of all, the market was hugely down right then. I could not convince my bosses that that was a reasonable trip for me to take, and thus NANOG for a brief period has had this, it's a junket sort of scenario with my boss. They've gotten past that. This is an easier trip for me to make. I'm not going to say we shouldn't go to fun places, but that was just as an observation, that was a really negative on my management's perception of what NANOG was. The photos of everybody having fun on the beach also didn't help. But anyway, I don't know here nor there what to say, but it was a perception in my company.
Yeah, that certainly was a problem, and you're not the only person we heard that from, even though that wasn't really much of a resort environment we were in. It was unique and exotic. So.
Brandon Ross, IOCOM. On the other hand of that same argument, I want to point out that NANOG going to the Dominican Republic actually opened up NANOG to a lot of people in the Dominican Republic that, and I understand your issue, that never would have been able to go to a NANOG otherwise because coming from a person who has a network there and other places around the Caribbean, hopefully soon. Places like that, or maybe Mexico or other places that are where the cost of living is a lot lower, the local North Americans who are part of our group who can't quite afford to travel to Miami or Austin or somewhere else, they may be able to attend when they can't. So I think that balance of the 1 or 2 times that we've done something like that is not so bad, really.
And that's the counter argument to going places like that. We did reach a new, or potentially reached a new audience that we hadn't met before, and we also got to see a piece of the network, a piece of the world that we hadn't seen before. So I think there was a lot of benefit to it. So that opens up the question of where should we be going? I know this is in the survey frequently. Is our usual rotation of cities good enough? Should we actually try to narrow it down so we go to the same set of 3 cities or 6 cities over and over? Or do we want to go more interesting places like more meetings in Canada, for example, or maybe even Alaska someday, or probably not Hawaii. I don't think I could sell that, but...
So not quite Canada, but how about Cambridge, Akamai? Todd?
And I think, truthfully, that all of us on the various committees and at Merit, and probably among the community members yourselves, struggle with the issue of what is the target audience, what is the population that we're trying to serve with NANOG. For the last few meetings, I would say like 2 years, I don't know if it's deeper than that, 1/3 approximately of our attendee base is here for the first time. How many of those folks who attend for the first time come to subsequent meetings? Probably some good data analysis of understanding that trend. And also asking ourselves of the folks who attend NANOG, do they make it to all 3 or do they just make it to 2 of the 3? I think a little bit better understanding of your trending data and your target population and how you want the community to grow is in order for your next chapter.
This is Karo Rapio from Certified Hacker Finland. This is totally unrelated to this discussion, actually a new area of questioning. Does NANOG as a group have any kind of outreach program for, I would say, developing network areas like Africa? The whole continent of Africa has got a substantial increase in their fiber connectivity during the last year or so. And there is a lot of, I would say, whole group of new network engineers in the developing there. I'm a bit concerned from the network security viewpoint. Being myself a security person, there is a potential for that area to be a dark area for us, in a way that there could be I would say, bad ISPs developing there. But also, I mean, just to give out the knowledge base that the NANOG has, all the presentations, and give that forward there. This is, I mean, totally a separate program, could be, but not totally unrelated to NANOG. But this community has a lot of knowledge that some parts of the world don't have. And it's free, and it's I mean all the presentations are out there publicly available, but maybe making some volunteer group of people going out giving lectures and things could be a good idea.
Well, and there are definitely a number of operator groups around the world. Clearly, I think we would all agree that NANOG and the operators here and the attendee base is probably the deepest of the general attendance in the other operators group. Maybe one of the things, Steve, on the steering committee and Dave on the program committee, you might want to consider is how you might outreach to some of those other operator groups and build some of that global networking that was just spoken about.
Yeah, NANOG as an organization hasn't really focused on that before. It's certainly an interesting thought. There has been some discussion of perhaps coming up with a funding model to send some of the experts in our community to the meetings AFNOG, for example, overseas for more information exchange. Perhaps it might be more effective than what we've been doing, which is inviting one or two of them to come to us. That's something certainly to talk about. There are certainly organizations in the U.S. that do this sort of outreach on much more formal basis. There are people I know who devote a lot of time and energy into helping developing nations build their network infrastructures, but that tends to happen through organizations not NANOG. That's certainly something worth thinking about and worrying about in the future. And if anybody wants to toss in ideas or even help with this, or maybe toss in some funds, it's the kind of thing we could do. Next.
Hi, TJ Knifton from Nokia. So on that last comment, having a team member who's actually currently in Europe teaching African network operators, I would say I could probably throw someone your way who might have some suggestions on that when he gets back. So I had comments on a few of the areas that you had talked about in terms of pricing for conference attendance-ship and locations. Coming from a large company, I can say there's some amount of flexibility in terms of conference attendance fees as long as they're, let's say, in line with similar types of conferences like we talked about. Personally, in my company, having travel that's domestic puts it in sort of a different class of approvals needed, and so it becomes a little bit easier. Not going to exotic locations also helps, as was discussed, and so I actually had a trip booked to the DR for that, and it didn't happen. I would say being able to generate some more amount of revenue and having the additional sponsorship seems like it would be beneficial to NANOG, but I think it was a very good point that you made about not having it turn into some sort of trade show, and I think that there's a very good balance in terms of things being sponsored now, but also not being overly commercial or having the appearance of bias in the technical information. So I think that the balance is very good right now. You could probably have wiggle room on either side, but good to be sort of watching over that.
Thanks.
Hey guys.
Hi. You're not going to tell a joke, are you?
We knew you were coming.
You did. My name is Bill Norton, and I just had a general kind of question about whether during the revolution we just happened to magically come up with the right structure. We have a steering committee, we have a program committee, we have a mailing list committee, now renamed as a different committee. Did we magically just come up with the right structure of an organization to deal with the evolution of the Internet? Or do we have a structure that's rigid, that is really meant as a cookie cutter to create a program, move forward, create a new program, and cycle people through various roles? I wonder if we're a little bit on the rigid side in terms of organizational structure as compared with what we might want to have into the future. And I'll give you an example. If it makes sense for this forum to have working groups to focus on a particular operations problem or document a particular operations processes, how would this group decide this is the right way for NANOG to evolve? So I just tossed that out as something I've been thinking about a little bit.
It's an interesting thought. Yeah, we've been living with this structure for, 6, I don't know, however many years now. It seems to work, but I'm obviously biased, and I'm in the inside of it, and I see what works. We do have a charter amendment structure such that if somebody were to propose changes, we could use that. The charter itself is it's rigid in a few places, but it's very loose in many others, and that was deliberate, I believe. We can do things and have done things like create the marketing working group and things like that allow us to bend a bit
But in essence, you're proving my point. We have codified how this group should work forward as kind of a structure, as if we had in our mind exactly the right organizational idea of how this stuff should move forward. I put to you that the Internet has evolved in ways that we could not possibly predicted back 6 years ago. But we have this rigid structure. So how do you guys see the evolution of NANOG to meet those needs, or is it going to continue to be a cookie cutter for here on forward?
I personally am not the best person to answer that question because, again, I'm on the inside of the cookie cutter. It's very interesting, and I would love to hear, and I think the community would love to hear options. I will submit, though, that 6 years ago we needed a structure, and we got a structure that seems to have done a decent job of working for us. Just the fact that you guys are all here and paid your registration fees and whatever is a sign that we did go off completely in the wrong direction. Kris?
Rob Seastrom from Affiliates speaking on my own behalf. Bill, what problem are you trying to solve? Is there an identified problem, or is it just rhetoric trying to get us to think deep thoughts? I'm not trying to be rude here. You know, it's not clear to me that there's actually a problem. So if there is a problem, let me know.
It was more of a thought. As I said, there's a structural issue where I put to you that 80 or 90% of the traffic on the Internet today is video. So why aren't we focusing 80 or 90% of the conference on video, or having a subsection where folks go off and do a study of how we as operators should grow this part of the infrastructure to deal with that inevitability?
Bill should put in a request for a PC slot, right? Put that on the agenda, Bill. Submit the prezo.
I'm simply answering, Ren, the question that was put to me as to what type of issues are we talking about. Is there a real problem here? At this point, I'm not sure. I'm really talking more of a structural question. Did we happen to get everything right the first time, or can we evolve it, and should we evolve it?
Well,
how would we do that? We don't have a process, I don't think.
And I can't help but answer, or not answer, but provide my own feedback as well. I think from what I'm hearing Bill say and RS from your comment, the thought is, what do you, that enters for me, what do you all want out of NANOG? I think to answer Bill's question, or RS's your question, what's broken, it may be that nothing's broken, that you all are getting what you want. On the other hand, if you dig a little bit deeper, is there more that as an attendee you would want to get out of this activity or this email list, this community of which you belong?
As somebody who hit the max term limit in the first group to hit the max term limit, I was grateful for it. I'm happy to see the fantastic agenda, new blood, brought to this meeting. I think we got it right by making no more than 4 years for anybody on the program committee, because there's no way all of us would have rotated out when we should have if it was just left for us to go on and on and on. It was the right time.
Okay, we have cues at each of the mics now, so let's start with the third one back.
Oh, hi. I have to say this to Bill. As one of the people involved, and I see other people in the room who were involved 6 years ago in setting up the current structure, I am absolutely shocked at how well it's worked. And most of us who were involved in setting up that structure at this point are not involved in the governance of NANOG, to our great relief. You know, I think many of us put in our time and helped out in various ways. But you know, it stood the test of time, and it stood the test of time because of a couple of things. Because it was a collaborative process. It was one in which no one was completely happy, which means it was probably a pretty good bargain. It was one in which a lot of changes happened in the first couple of years after we did it to fine-tune and to fix the screw-ups and the mistakes. I think it's going to have to change. But I think if you look at the folks who are on the program committee, the folks who are on the steering committee, the amount of folks who are circulating through, the folks on the other committees who have a chance to get involved, I think we're in a much better place now than we were 6 years ago or 10 years ago. And I think we've got a structure that if somebody wants to change something, we can change it. Just my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Don't forget there are charter elections every year. So if you want to, anybody wants to propose a change to abolish the steering committee, for example, that's the way to do it. Let's move forward.
Thanks, John Kristoff from Team Comrie. On a completely different subject, one thing I didn't hear that Dave said that I usually hear is the number of presentations that come forward or submitted and how many are accepted. So I thought maybe one idea might be for the group, for the program committee, to, I think would be fairly easy to implement, is come up with a best presentation award and second best, and maybe something that you would do is actually give them a discount for the next NANOG or the next NANOG that they attend. And that's something that they can take back as a marketing thing for their organization to help justify it next time if they show that they've got that sort of thing. Something to put on their resume. I know we probably not a good forum for people to present papers, so it's maybe something that they could use as a marketing tool themselves.
Thanks for the suggestion. I don't know how we'd implement that. We'd have to think about it, but it's a great suggestion, and appreciate it.
We're just trying to figure out who was at what stage, since I guess that one's dead.
Okay. Well, you three can decide among you who goes first, and then ask a question, please, or make your comment.
No question, just a comment that I think Bill's observation was content related, not necessarily structural related. Having been involved in bottom-up activist stuff for a long time. Oh, sorry, Joe Provo, ITA Software, speaking for myself, blah, 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 blah. I think that this approach of making an indirect management organization was a direct response to the previous structure of the entity, and actually is a pretty progressive structure in that there is no direct touch to the content of the program via the people that are elected, so vendors or particular factions don't stack the deck. That's the purpose. And as for organizing the content, that's the purpose of the PC, and changes there are pretty open. There's no prescribed structure. We just happen to have fallen into certain patterns for the program. And I don't want to try to make it too much of a thing there, but just that there is no there is no restriction against what you just suggested. So run with it. Talk to people. Get it done.
All right, we are running towards the end of time, so if you are going to make a comment, please move toward the microphone now and get in line. Next.
Hi, Dave Temkin, Netflix. To Bill's point, I would say that there is no shortage of content that directly addresses the challenges of today's network operator. I would say most people who are directly in touch with what it takes to operate a network nowadays, either from the content provider side or from the eyeball side, would say that there's a ton of relevant content here, and the meeting attendance shows that. I think if the agenda was stacked full of stuff that wasn't relevant, people would have a really, really hard time getting their employers to pay for them to come here, regardless of whether we added $100 to the registration. So, I don't want to repeat what Joe said, but everyone has the right to submit whatever content they want, and if it's relevant and it's accurate, we should discuss it.
Thank you.
Greg Dendy. Steve asked a good question earlier we kind of blew by about whether it'd be better to shorten our rotation on sites down to 3 and repeat them every year, or continue with sort of the wide rotation. I prefer the wide rotation. Places like Albuquerque, I got to meet some local network operators, some postgrads in the local universities. It happens everywhere we go, and I would be disappointed to see us pick 3 cities and stay there.
Thanks. All right, there's nobody in line. Does anyone else have anything, or shall we call ourselves done? Okay. I guess that's it for the open discussion. Thank you, everyone, for participating. A lot of really interesting ideas came out of it. I hope that we'll take it back and give these some thought. This isn't the only chance, though. If you have other ideas for us, please email either in the NANOG Futures list or us directly, or stand up on a mountaintop and shout. And finally, I understand it is somebody's birthday today. And I will not do anybody the disservice of trying to sing, but happy birthday, Raz.